马上就要开始第二场Marjorie Chen, she is currently the associate professor of the Ohio State University, and and her research interests and expertise is in phonology, and she has canonical works on Fuzhou phonology and Zhongshan phonology. But her research interests obviously has already expanded, not just within the phonetic audio side, because today she is going to present a very interesting research topic, which is about the world of le Petit Prince. Pardon for my poor French. 小王子. I'm confident about this pronunciation. 小王子, Grapholinguistics research and language pedagogy. Okay, I invite all of you. Welcome Professor Marjorie Chen with a big round of applause.
Okay, before I do, can I ask the audience, both online and on the site, how many of you have read or are familiar with Le Petit Prince, The Little Prince, 小王子, 小王子, whatever language you are familiar with it? Will you raise your hand? Or in both? Yeah, okay, so I'm talking to quite a few people who already know something about it. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen. Hey, can you all see it?
Some part of them are blocked.
Is it?
Now it's fine.
Oh, okay. All right, so now hang on a second. Okay, so I have some covered, and the question I asked, so I know that at least many of you are familiar with at least some version of it. And in case some of you don't know, it's the most translated book in the world except for the Bible. Now, in June 2017, I want to give you a little story first. A longtime friend and fellow UPC alumna, and she's a few decades younger than I am, Zoe Lam, gave me fresh off the press a signed book that she had contributed to as a copy editor. And the book is The Little Prince in Cantonese, 小王子, 廣東話版, okay, and the translator is Choi Wei Chun, okay, and the book is a wonderful introduction to the story that sat quietly among the many books in my personal library at home until 2022. My advisee, Paul Dueda, wrote his MA thesis, where he included 2 Taiwanese South Thunderman Taiki translation of the Petit Prince. Now, my advisee's use of the 2 Taiki translations piqued my curiosity. I started to explore Choi's Cantonese translation, first using his 2017 publication, and then I bought his 2021 publication. And that publication added the Yuping romanization. So it's very valuable for language learners. My group and then solo presentations before today's talk. One is in 2022, where we gave a few of my students, including one who's in the audience here, we presented at the Wicker Conference. And then 2023, I presented a presentation on the sensified particles of the main characters. Oh, no, I get the overall view of that in the Chinese Dialects Festival and virtually in Moscow. And then 2024, just recently in spring, I gave a presentation, this time focusing on the sensified particles used by the main characters, and that was in NACO 36 conference. Now, before turning our attention to the novella itself, let me first address my focus here on grapholinguistics and written language. The spoken language has, until more recently, been the only modality deemed worthy of linguistic research, and this is something I mentioned in the abstract. Sign language, as another modality for linguistic research, was not added until the 1960s. The written language is the third modality serving as the new frontier for linguistic research in its own right, and not merely secondary to the spoken language in simply recording what was said. Hence, the growing importance of grapholinguistics ushering in new research interest in this subfield of linguistics. Now, grapholinguistics is something I already defined in my abstract, and it's broadly defined as the interdisciplinary field focused on the study of all aspects of writing. Digitization in the latter part of the 20th century has opened new forms of communication that has justified treating written language as an independent modality for a broad range of linguistic research. Unicode is the most significant breakthrough in the 20th century for research on written languages. It is an internationally agreed upon standard, and before that you had, the Robel and Dawuma and things like that, right? Upon the standard for character encoding of the scripts of different languages, with the support of the relevant Unicode-compatible fonts, and that's really important, right? Input as well, and reading of different scripts are made possible across different platforms with their own operating systems that support various software programs and apps. And Unicode-based tools that support grapholinguistic research include, and I'm only going to mention two, segmenters, if they're available, for preparing e-text for input into concordansers, etc. And concordansers are needed for studying the written corpora in a wide range of different scripts, along with providing frequency lists, etc. Now, this presentation brings these tools to the study of Choi's 2017-2021 Cantonese translation of Le Petit Prince. At this point, one question to be asked: why choose the particular story to study? I think part of the reason I already kind of mentioned, right? So my answer is basically the same as what I gave this spring at NACO 36. Le Petit Prince is a 27-chapter novella. It was written and illustrated by French author and World War II aviator Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. My French is really bad at the moment. During his wartime exile in New York. The cover I have on the right side there, right? It was published there in 1943 and was translated in that same year into English by Catherine Woods. And in fact, there was no other translation into English until the 1970s. So for about 30 years, hers is the only translation. Over 200 million copies of this book have been sold worldwide, and that's based on 2011, so over a decade ago. You can imagine how many more copies have been sold. Now, in this original French and the hundreds of translations, making it one of the best-selling books in the world. It's also the most translated book in the world, behind only religious works, and I think Bible is the only one actually. Ostensibly, it's a children's book, and you can see from the cover, it shows a little boy, no less, right? So it gives the impression that it is only for children, but that's not true. It can be read on much deeper philosophical levels. Last year, 2023, marked the book's 80th anniversary. New York City celebrated the anniversary with a new monument on Fifth Avenue, a 4-foot-tall bronze statue of the Little Prince gazing up at the sky. So this is clearly not just any old book. Okay, so some little tips on this, including this International Little Prince Day even. Okay, I know that a number of you are already familiar, but I think for the sake of other people, I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about the plot. Okay, so the 2 paragraphs here is from Encyclopedia Britannica. The narrator introduces himself as a man who learned when he was a child that adults lack imagination and understanding. He's now a pilot who has crash landed in the desert, and that's actually the author's own personal experience, in fact. He encounters a small boy who asks him for a drawing of a sheep, and the narrator obliges. The narrator, who calls the child the little prince, learns that the boy comes from a very small planet, which the narrator believes to be asteroid B612. Over the course of the next few days, the little prince tells the narrator about his life. On his asteroid planet, which is no bigger than a house, the prince spends his time pulling up baobab seedlings lest they grow big enough to engulf the tiny planet. One day, an anthropomorphic rose grows on the planet, and the prince loves her with all his heart. However, her vanity and demands became too much for the prince, and he leaves. Now, the prince visits 6 planets, leaving an adult at each. For example, he meets a king without subjects, a drunkard who drinks to forget the shame of drinking, a lamplighter whose planet is so small that one day lasts only 1 minute, though he repeatedly lights, extinguishes, and relights his street lamp. The prince then arrives on Earth and meets the narrator. The prince also meets a poisonous snake that tells him of his ability to return the prince to his asteroid planet if he wishes. The prince then meets a fox, which imparts wisdom to him, including his secret. It's only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. The prince yearns for his rose and allows the snake to bite him to enable him to return home. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of background there. Now, since its publication, this novella has been translated into 581 different languages and dialects. That's already more than the 577 that I mentioned in my abstract. So in the last 2 months, you got several more. And there are 7,197 editions. And that doesn't count the ones that are not full, they may get abridged and things like that. Don't get counted. For Chinese language, there are 1,340 editions. It's incredible. And there are 4 language varieties. Mandarin, most of them are in Mandarin, Chinese, and then Southern Min, 3 translations, and they're in Taiwan, Hakka, and there's also Taiwan Hakka with 2 translators, and then Cantonese with 1 translator, and there are 3 editions, the hard copy, a hardback and the paperback in 2017, and a hardback in 2021. Now, what you can see here is that for the Chinese, the different language, different dialects or different varieties, they're published at different years. So for the Cantonese, it's not until 2017, 2031, etc. All right. And then for the simplified versions, the traditional, there are 4 more simplified versions, but it was published a little bit later than the traditional. So basically, around the time that additional translators translated the novella into English. So given all these editions, there are many, many opportunities for Chinese internal as well as cross-linguistic studies of the scripts, vocabulary, translations, etc., etc. Isn't it great? Now, for the rest of the presentation, I'm going to talk about the Cantonese corpus. I prepared for a lot, so I might have to skip some things. And then for the grapholinguistic portion, I'm focusing on identifier particles and classifiers, 2 things that are not in the original French. And the pedagogical issues, I'm going to talk just about reading and translation. And we just heard from Professor Chuan Yu 教授的听说读解 and 翻译, right? So translation, that's written to the topic for this evening, and then concluding remarks. All right. So here you are with our translation in 2021 and a sample page from there, so you can see the Chinese characters, and then you can see the Yueping romanization. And the Cantonese version with the Yueping is actually available online. So if you haven't seen it before, you can see it. And since the time when I had first looked at it. Right now, you can, copy and paste, and you can then capture all the Chinese characters. So you can get all 27 captures from it. And so here you are with the two corpora. One is the non-space text for Chinese, and then and this thanks to our translator and Zoe Lam for providing copies for me. And then now for the character text can be obtained by copy and paste. I just mentioned it, right? Now segmentation. That's needed for the non-space character text in order to make the best use of concordances. Otherwise, you have to do the regular expression, and that doesn't help for too much. Segmentation without access to a word segmenter for Cantonese, the simplest solution would be to just add a space between characters, and that's perform character segmentation. I cited Winterstein et al. 2020, and they're doing a study where they were doing manual word segmentation. I don't know if that means that there isn't any word segmentation handy for people to use. If there is, please let me know. Now, for character segmentation, one of the software that is available, and I have used it, is not NG Star Communicator. And it's for Windows, and it has a universal code converter, and that can be used for adding or removing spaces along with other nifty kind of things like stripping HTML codes from web pages, for example, and other things. It's really nice. And it's a free version that you can download, and then maybe add software that can do it. If you don't have the software, Microsoft Word can do it, but it's more cumbersome, and you guys can find out later, okay? And there's a sample page where it has been segmented. And then I use Ancon. It's developed by Professor Lawrence Anthony, and it's free, and it's widely used. And the nice thing is it's also in multi-platform, so for Windows, Mac, and Unix. And it accepts text in Unicode along with different formats. And then, so here's some examples. So for example, if you're interested in, movie subtitles and things like that, it's there too, okay? So, and Ancon has a word segmented for Japanese and for standard Mandarin-based Chinese, but alas, it doesn't have it for, Cantonese, for Hakka, or for Taipei. Now, in terms of character corpus, then types and tokens, so you're not familiar with those terms, types would be different Chinese characters, tokens in the total number of characters. So in this particular corpus, there are 1,426 characters, types, and 23,074 tokens, or actual total number of characters. And then, so here's from Ancon showing the frequency. I divided the corpus into 27 chapters so that I can see where some particular material comes from, which chapter it comes from. And you can see that in terms of ranking, then Ro and Kui and Ge and things like that are the top ones. I just showed you the 20. And then there's a standard version of it, copy of it, okay? And then the Ancon 4 version, 4.24, is able to do the word cloud. So I guess most people should know word clouds is the more frequent the character, the bigger it appears on the picture, right? So, and then out of the top 20 characters of the corpus, 6 or roughly 1/3 of them are vernacular written Cantonese. And this list even includes Liu Wangji, the 3 characters that are not normally found in anywhere near the top of a Cantonese frequency list, right? Okay. And then at the same time, 3 of these characters, Ho, Do, and Ni or Ne, are used in colloquial Cantonese in broader context than they're used in standard Mandarin-based Chinese, where Shen, Ye, and Zhe would otherwise be used. Okay. And if we look next at the top 20 items in the Word.hk online Cantonese word frequency list, omitting the E, that's original number 9, and ignoring Liu Wangji, our Cantonese corpus characters frequency list overlap a great deal with the Word.hk list. And the most frequent words in the Word.hk list are monosyllabic from 1 through 61. And out of the top 100 most frequent words, only 4 are disyllabic. Hoi, Yanhai, Yige, Nai. The top 100 words also include 2 letters of the alphabet E, as I guess in the e-book, email, that kind of thing, and then D, substitute for the Cantonese D. Okay, and then in terms of n-grams, for one, that your frequency list right there, and then for two, then you have the 2 character clusters. And I won't go into detail, but basically a lot of them are actually, disyllabic words, right? For 3 character clusters, they're not that many. So basically, Cantonese have a lot of monosyllabic words and quite a few disyllabic, but trisyllabic not so much, especially not for frequency. And this is a display of a sample using the search of GA, the sense-finder particle. So I had 27 files, and there are 76 hits for GA, and the sorting is 1 to the right, 2 to the right, and 3 to the right. Okay. And then if you are interested to see the distribution, then for the GA, you can see chapters, some most frequent. So the chapter 26 has the most frequent, and where it's spaced out in the different chapters, right? Okay, and then for take a look at the contrast from the character frequency list and the syllable frequency list. You can see here. Then in terms of 20 initials and 53 finals in Cantonese, that will lead to over 600 legitimate base syllables. In this particular corpus, the total is 479. And what you can see here is that in both the character and the syllable, the ngo is first. And then Kö is very close. It's the top, the second top, and it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. Okay, top for the, so they're pretty close. But the one that's quite different is the Ji, where obviously for the syllable structure, that ZI or ZI, depending how you want to pronounce it in, British English or Canadian or American English, it obviously also have it in different tones. That's why it's higher up on the syllable list. Okay, and then for people who might be interested, one can convert Chinese characters to Yuping with some tools, and there's one online that you can see. Okay, and so now we move on to the sense-finder particles in Cantonese corpus. So French, the original language in the writing of the Petit does not have sense-finder particles. In contrast, the Chinese language, especially Cantonese, has an abundance of sense-finder particles. A total count of Cantonese sense-finder particles varies from 30 or so to 62 to even as many as 77. At the same time, Cantonese sense-finder particles can occur singly, or as we just saw, in the cluster of 2 or even 3. Mandarin, on the other hand, we haven't seen that yet. I moved this slide earlier to an earlier page. On the other hand, only allows the to combine with other sense-finder particles. Matthews and Yip mentioned that. In addition, Cantonese sense-finder particles bear tone and are often lengthened. In fact, the duration can be increased or dramatically increased by up to or even exceeding 1 second. Sense-finder particles form an indispensable part of the spoken language. Absence of affective sense-finder particles in spoken Cantonese sound very unnatural. And here, so now what we have here is a list of 44 sense-finder particles, so more than Kwok and the Matthews and Yip, but less than the Egorod and less than the James Diabol's early material. But it's the same site as where you have the Wangji. And so now what's so special about Choi's Cantonese translation is that Yuping is added in this revised edition, hence the 2 scripts in 1 book. And with the Yuping romanization added, each Chinese character is accompanied by the pronunciation. And that's really crucial, because otherwise you don't know what is the tone when you're only given the Chinese character, right? And this is similar to what one finds in children's books for learning to read with characters between Yin, Fu, Hao, and things like that. And Professor Lau Chapman, I think I see him in the audience, a team member in Choi's book, that this is the first book in Hong Kong which you can throughout the entire book. So hooray, that's really great. This means that sense-finder particles, for example, can be provided Chinese characters, and you can then provide its intended pronunciation. Okay, so how many different sense-finding particles occur in this corpus? The total 19. Okay, so 8 on the 44 is over 40%. But if you think about the earlier things about only 30, then it's 2/3. It's a lot. Okay, and then in terms of the different frequency occurrence from 1 token of ge, lo, to 58 cases of ne, 70 cases of ga that you saw earlier, and 109 cases of Now, I do a little quick thing on looking at the different sense-finding particles used in by 4 of the main characters, right? So, flower, the one character identified as female in this story used more different sense-finding particles than the others, and uses the most sense-finding particles overall, in spite of producing fewer utterances than the others, except for the snake. Flower reflects the greater use of sense-finding particles by females in general, and that's something I've written on. Little Prince used almost as many different sense-finding particles as Flower, and used more sense-finding particle overall in his dialogue with the flower than with the snake and the fox. So it's important to think about who are the interlocutors, topic, childbirth, and doubt, etc., etc. So total types, 12 different sense-finding particles are used across these 4 characters, so roughly 2/3 of the types in the corpus. Okay, a written corpus, and in this case, one with both Chinese characters chosen by the author and European romanization, allows for conducting corpus-based research that's not possible or is difficult with spoken corpora. In studying sense-finding particles and counting the number of utterances in the dyad between Little Prince and the other 3 main characters, flower, snake, and fox, one primarily needs to count the main punctuation marks in those dialogue, period, question mark, exclamation mark, and then the occasion came dot, and then maybe others. So that just that alone gives you a very good count of the uses of the sense-finding particles. And here's a reading from the book. So there are several sources online of reading from Troy's book, and there's other cases where some other sources were used. Okay, so let me play the sound file. Okay, so these are
你好靚啊，唔通唔靚咩？我同太陽喺同一時間出世嘅喎。
You guys can hear it, I hope. Okay, and then using Pratt, the same utterance, and can see it's very high pitch, right? My upper limit is 500 hertz, and it almost reaches it. It's about 480 something.
你好靚啊，唔通唔靚咩？我同太陽喺同一時間出世嘅喎。
How do you like that, huh? Okay, we will end this section with a couple of multilinguistic comparisons of that initial exchange. Okay, the examples include audio in other cases and things like that. So in this case, I didn't bother with the audio. So French, like que vous êtes-elle and things like that. All right, and then the English. Now I do have audio for the Mandarin. Okay, so and you can see that even though the French and English doesn't have such things as sense-finding particles, you can see that they occur in both the Cantonese and in the Mandarin here. Okay.
你真漂亮啊，是吧？而且我出生时太阳正好。
Okay, I forgot I include some Mandarin since the audience may be interested in Mandarin as well as Cantonese. All right, and then here I don't have any online sources for the Taiwan Hakka. If anyone comes across it, do let me know. Okay, and then but for the Taiki, it's not in the book itself, but there's the online source for you to obtain, right? So, and here you have it as well. Okay.
你講笑夠衰啊！咁唔是咧，我個舌頭更借時間出寫。
Okay, how does that sound to you guys? Okay, classifiers. We move on to classifiers in the Cantonese corpus. Another area where Chinese differs from French, English, and other European languages is that it's rich in classifiers as distinguished from leisure words. Okay, without a corpus that's already tagged for parts of speech, the post-tag corpus, one could simply study a character frequency list generated in Uncog or some other concordance software using character-space text. Here, a corpus, as we noted earlier, is 1,426 types. An alternative is to conduct some keyword in context, the quick searches that I showed earlier with that guy. Search in the concordance, so using numerals and the ones with just ni and go, and then that's a quick way to obtain some cases of classifiers. So I have a list here that I just got from doing 1, 2, 3, and this and that. And I decided to focus on nup and ba because they're a little bit more unusual. Okay, and what you find is that for nup there are 59 hits for hang, sing, etc. Okay, and then for ba in Mandarin, that courses in Mandarin, ba only occurs as a covert. Here you have ba sang and then ba chai, and then plus a couple of other words using that. Okay, and then pedagogical issues. And I'm just focused on reading and translation. Now, the Petit Prince in French or in translation is regarded as a children's book that may be read to those as young as 5, maybe younger even. There are, however, much deeper layers of meaning that adults can appreciate, and precisely for that reason, the book can easily be included in an intermediate level foreign language course. One author, Yun Jian, and I think that's just a pseudonym, had in fact translated into Mandarin Chinese with both a traditional and a simplified Chinese edition for HSK level 4 learners. She includes a vocabulary and audio files to assist the language learner. Earlier still, there's at least one translation into Chinese with pinyin. Okay, and you can see that. So that's a page capture from my Kindle page, and then the cover is on the top right. So in the foreign language classroom setting, accuracy in pronunciation and correct usage of vocabulary and grammar in a particular setting are paramount. Yet, there's another level of reading the printed page that's not normally part of a foreign language classroom activity, and that's reading as one would in more oral storytelling fashion. Parents reading to their child or kindergarten or grade 1 teachers to their class to read with emotion in varying the pitch, tempo, and volume, how loud or how soft, right, of their voice. This is especially crucial given the range of characters whom the little prince encounters in his journey from his home planet. At the same time, tone and non-tone languages differ in how and what they manipulate. And even within tone languages, such as Cantonese and Mandarin, they also differ. This is precisely because Cantonese is not only syllable timed and not just timed, and it also has tones on each syllable, including sense final particles, right? And it has 3 pitch registers, high, mid, and low, thus resulting in constraining the use of pitch expansion, which you find in Mandarin. A written text provides the words, but it does not tell one precisely how to read it. The narratives could, of course, provide hints and suggestions, such as telling the reader that the character spoke softly or loudly or brusquely. But it's then up to the reader to supply an appropriate lively rendition from the printed page. The Petit Prince, with its numerous dialogues, with very different and colorful characters, provide precisely the opportunity for language learners to go beyond simply reading the text silently or semi-acting it out orally, to extend the engagement with the target language and have some fun doing so. In the next set of slides, we will listen to 2 Cantonese readings, so you already heard one, and then this followed by 3 Mandarin, and the first one you already heard too. The third is from Yun Xian's own audio recording to accompany her translation, right? And I included the narration part as well. So here's the Cantonese that you heard earlier.
你好靚啊，唔通唔靚咩？我同太陽喺同一時間出世㗎喎。
Okay, and then this one comes from source and it's a different reading, so the words are different.
你真係好靚啊！係咩？你知唔知啊？我係同太陽同時誕生㗎。
So you notice the two people reading the female part, the flower part, are quite different. Now we move on to Mandarin. The first one you already heard.
你真漂亮啊！是吧？而且我出生时太阳正好。
Okay, and then second one.
你真漂亮啊，是吧？而且我出生时太阳正好。
How do you like this one? Okay, it's very, very breathy. And that reminds me of one person in Hollywood who speaks with a very breathy voice, and that's Marilyn Monroe. Okay, all right. And then this is the Yun Xian's one.
小王子已经爱上了这朵花。他说：“你是多么美丽呀！”花儿轻松地说：“是吧？我是和太阳同时出生的。”
Okay, so that gives you an idea. Given the dialogues, given the different characters and what they're, how they would portray themselves, you can see different people were reading it differently. So you can imagine yourself trying to read it in a way that you think would be, we're going to be more coquettish for the flower or not, for example. Okay, now turning to translation, one may try to translate as close to the original language as possible. An alternative approach is to translate to reflect the spirit of the original language, even if the translation may not hew closely to the original wording. Foreign language programs such as those in my department focus on the spoken language and on the ability to communicate with native speakers. Nonetheless, when one deals with languages with no current native speakers, such as Latin or classical Chinese, course assignments and classroom activities may involve translating into one's own language, such as from Latin into modern English or from classical Chinese into English or modern Chinese. Translations also needed elsewhere, such as coursework, where one quotes the text written in a foreign language. Thus, the need to render the cited passage into English. This is a skill that requires effort and continued practice. For those wishing to translate a piece of fiction, as in the case of the Petit Prince, much effort needs to go into producing a good translation. Consider something as simple as translating N'est-ce pas in Clarice's response to the little prince's admiration of her beauty. She replied softly. The original French, N'est-ce pas? Répondit doucement la fleur. One sees in the French sentence that Flower's response with N'est-ce pas was intended to be somewhat coquettish and not a genuine question seeking an answer. Indeed, immediately on hearing saying that, she proceeded to boast that she was born at the same time as the sun. Hence, literally translating N'est-ce pas with is it not in English, super in Mandarin Chinese, or hai in Cantonese would be odd, as it would be to use an A not A pattern to translate Hamlet's famous line, to be or not to be, super no. Okay. Instead, the different languages translation takes context into consideration, and notably most translations of N'est-ce pas in Chinese variety includes a final particle. Okay, now really these final particles can turn to the frequency that's generated from the three written corpora. So what you can see here, Cantonese and then Ma Zhenqiang and Li Jitong. The least translation is treated as the authoritative one by the author's estate. And for some reason, Ma's translation, even though I've only found 1999, somehow he treated as the first translator in China. So I'm not sure what's the reason behind that. But you can see here, Hao, Ho, Do, and Ne are there in the Cantonese, but they don't show up at the top 30. Precisely because Cantonese is used for additional purposes. Now, we turn to one more quick example, and that's in the French, it's the top left. The English translation by Catherine Wood is the top right, and then the bottom left is the Choi's translation, and then the bottom right is Lee's translation. And you can see what you see here is that, well, I just colored in blue. I use the Renard. Voici mon secret, il est très simple, etc., etc. And then 再见, from the Li. So what you find here is that in the Li translation, it is basically as close as it could be to the original French. There's no sense find the particles and the additions. When you look at Catherine Wood's, she adds things like "and now," which is not in the French, and then here's my secret, a very simple secret. There's a duplication there that's not in the original French either. And in Cantonese, you add the la, and la, and then you add "roaneji," which is not in the French, and "keisat," actually that's not in the French either, right? So you can see that except for the Li translation, everybody else takes certain kind of liberty, okay? And then concluding remarks. So today's presentation on Xu has covered quite a bit of ground. Hopefully, attendees here have found the information informative for potential use in the future, whether specifically concerning the Cantonese translation or the other Chinese translation cited here, be it for grapholinguistic research, including research pertaining to corpus linguistics, dialectology, social linguistics, and or language pedagogy for teaching or language learning purposes. And finally, my special thanks to Zoe Lam for her wonderful gift that introduced me to the world of the Petit friends, to Andy Chin for the 2017 e-text from his Cantonese app for Micro 6, to Thomas Choi for generously providing his 2021 e-text for my corpus linguistic research, and to Paul Gieda for his thesis research on the Daiki versions that sparked my curiosity to explore and study the Cantonese translations and other sources. And big thanks to Dr. Ken Chung and his CLC team, and to all of you for your attention, and then several pages of references. And thank you. That's it. Thank you so much. And I need time for questions.
Okay, there's one question.
Hi, Professor Chen. I'm a PhD student from Macau University of Science and Technology. I'm very interested in your research.
Thank you.
So my question is, how do you define good translation, and how do you comment on the different versions, I mean, translated versions of Little Prince? Thank you.
I'm really bad with translations. I need a lot more practice. I think I remember Perry Link at one point talked about the issues of translation. Depends on what you're trying to do. Let's say, for example, if you are being tested on your ability to translate, in the Gaokao sort of thing, then I think you would want to be as precise as you can, right? If you try, but let's say, for example, here you are with Cantonese, especially with all sense find particles. If you translate without using any sense finder particles, because after all, there's no sense finder particle in French, then there's something missing there. I remember seeing one textbook one time for Cantonese, and what struck me is that the first few chapters had not a single sense finder particle, so it just reads the, and it sounds so odd, and that's why I was mentioning it's very something unnatural. So I think it depends what your purpose is. So, for example, if you're translating for, let's say, children or something that's more lively, then I think there's a place for adding to it. One of the translations I got for English, almost all the translations I've seen are translated by males, except for Catherine Wood's original one. And then one I came across where it's a mother and daughter. And lo and behold, they did translate things differently. I did include it in that slide. So for how the flower was talking. So I think there's a room for cases where it's something very technical and might want to translate it very precisely, right? Where it's really important. But I think there's other cases where, there may be other areas where it would be more fun and more meaningful to be translated somewhat differently. And I think that Little Prince is one where there is room for some degree of the variation. Obviously, the author's estate, had their own criteria that they were using in choosing the Lee, 2013 as the authoritative one, perhaps because the translation fits closest to what they want from the original author. But for other people, that may not be necessary their criteria. I hope that answers your question.
Is there other questions?
And I hope you guys are interested in the novel. I know Zoe has a lot of copies that she bought. I don't think I'm a match her, but I am collecting more and more.
Yeah, that one, right? That's very interesting novel, and it is a very good piece of work, right, that we can compare it with a lot of languages. I didn't know that there are some translation of Hakka and
Yes.
Taiwan. That's very great.
That's right.
Okay,
And
I can see there's another question, maybe.
Yeah, and Hakka one's really good because it has the romanization.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so we have another question.
陳教授你好，我可唔可以用粵語嚟問你啊？
OK， 好啊。
因為咧，我細個嗰陣咧都睇過即係粵語版嘅《小王子》嘅，咁咧我就發覺咧，我睇嘅嗰個版本，
邊個翻譯嘅？
我唔記得啦，好細個嗰陣睇嘅，
係啊，
好細個嗰陣睇嘅，咁我就發覺咧，唔好意思，因為我有啲感冒，所以我聲有啲奇怪，唔好意思。
冇所謂。
咁你有冇發覺就係每個版本廣東話嘅翻譯，佢係咪有啲用詞係會唔同嘅咧？
一定會有。
咁你覺得佢喺邊一部分嘅用詞最唔同咧？我想問下。
哦，咁我唔係咁清楚咧，因為我可能有我 example 咧，有個係第二個人寫噶嘛，咁我冇 written copy， 我唔未開始研究入佢嗰兩個翻譯有邊度唔同啊？
咁你有冇發覺佢每個版本佢同即係普通話嘅用詞越嚟越貼近咧？因為我睇到你對比個，即係我睇到入邊有一個 PPT 就係11年版同埋17年版嘅翻譯嘅用詞，我覺得17年版嗰個咧係同普通話嘅用詞非常貼近嘅。
尤其是如果係粵語係喺廣州翻譯或者會比較多啲普通話咧。
我明白啦。
我諗會有。好多而家喺廣州你發現會地你好嘛？以前廣州話廣東話唔用嗰個嘛嘛，但而家好似係啊，同埋另外啲嘢而家比較摸普通話話。
唔該晒陳教授。
唔該，thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have 3 more minutes. Any question online? Or can see Jack Ming. He says, thanks, Margie, for the highly captivating talk. I want to share share software.
Okay.
So that readers don't need to guess the tone is. So now they suggest some orthographic, right? 牙 is 口字加發芽嘅牙。He's the first person to use 牙。
And Chapman, I mean, you're the one who did a dissertation on R. I got a copy from a student. I haven't yet tried to read it, but it should be interesting.
Yeah, I remember that Professor K.K. Look also had a proposal on different way to read sentence sound particle, but that one is not that popular as well. It's difficult, right, to write those subtle difference in Chinese characters.
I think that's why it's so important for the combination of Chinese character and the Romanization, right? So there's no guesswork as to what is the intended character and what's the intended pronunciation. And of course, there are variants, right? Cantonese is notorious not being standardized. There are different, different graphic variants that are used. And so, so that's why, regardless, having both the Romanization and the character is really crucial. And I think that's one of the really big contributions of the second edition.
Yeah, that's great. Right? We should have more publications with Ping.
Yes, exactly.
Annotation.
Yeah, and I think with that as a starting point, especially for language learners, right?
Okay. Yeah. Other questions? Okay. Just one quick question. I noticed that there's a ranking of those statistics of characters. I looked at 小王子 should be a fixed phrase, but I see that 小王 comes together around the same rank. But 子 is especially lower rank. That's a bit strange to me. Why 小王子 should always come together, should be around the same rank.
But could be used for other things, like your fa, right? So that should be higher. And then, but I don't know about Wong, unless I haven't thought about it.
When do we use Wong and Ji in Cantonese except 小王子?
No. But that's why it's only in the 小王子 corpus that you see it. In the word HK, it's not. Right?
Yeah.
So 小王子, none of those three characters are in the top 20.
Okay, thank you. So I guess, okay, it's about time for lunch. So thank you very much, Marjorie. Let's have a big round of applause again. Thank you for this very interesting presentation. And let me see. We have a virtual. We have a virtual version of certificate of appreciation. Actually, we had one for Gu Chuan Jiao as well, but no. Can you see it? Can you see it? Wait a minute.
Thank you.
This is hard. Thank you for you.
Thank you.
I guess we'll send a physical copy to you.
Yes, I got the physical copy.
You have already got it. Okay,
yeah, that's why I also have the name tag.
Thank you very much, and well, welcome. If next time we'll meet in person. Okay.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.